Welcome back to the second half of my talk on strange Peru. This is Joe Taylor here at the Dinosaur Adventureland boot camp here in, what are we in, July, almost July 4th. We've been talking about some of the strange things that are found in Peru, the culture, people, and the artifacts left behind. Some of them are just, we don't know what they mean. We're not sure really who did some of them, or if they're even modern fakes or whatever. So we're talking about some of that. One of the things that's not a fake, we were in the museum there in Lima, and one of my guys I was with, Dr. Judd Burton, who's is an actual academic and a professor and an archaeologist and all that. He's actually the real thing. He was looking around, and this had escaped me. This pot had escaped my eye, but he looked at it and says, "Oh, look, a mastodon." I go, "Whoa, what? Mastodon?" "Yeah, can y'all see that pot there? It's a mastodon. He's got the hairy trunk. I mean, it's very stylized, but he's got the 4 or the 5 toes, which is correct. Oh, I just noticed, looks like there's a man underneath him. Maybe he stepped on some guy." So what would the Peruvians, how would they have known what a mastodon looks like 800 or 1,000 or 500 years ago, unless they saw one? Well, that won't work for the archaeologists and the academic evolutionists, the paleontologists, because they're going to tell you that mastodons went extinct 10,000 years ago, maybe a lot longer than that. Well, then how could the Peruvians know to depict one on a pot? Apparently, they haven't been gone that long. They're just wrong about it. It's like some of these things here in Mexico, the sculptures, the Alcambra sculptures. We don't have time to get into that, but they're depicting things that they're stylized. There are some of them not really. They're sort of amateurishly done, but you know what they're depicting. One of the most fascinating things about Peru are the megaliths. The 16-sided stone, y'all might have heard of that. There are walls over there in Peru that are made of all these gigantic rocks, and it's difficult enough to cut a straight stone off, just a square stone. That wasn't good enough for them. All these stones, they have all kinds of sides. Some of them have commas coming down on them, and they fit next to each other, huge stones, perfectly. That's just after hundreds of years of earthquakes. These stones fit so perfectly, you literally cannot get a piece of paper between them. Stone, hard stone. Why would anybody do that? But they did. Here's the wall in Cusco. This is my friend Henry there, standing in front of this. This wall, when you back off about half a mile, you'll see that it looks like a serpent. There's 2 of these things there. They're like a giant serpent. So why would anybody do that? Doesn't hold sheep, doesn't keep the water back. It's just a wall that represents something. Not only that, you see Henry there, he's 6 feet tall. He's a fireman. All those stones there are 6 to 10 feet tall. Some of them are 20 feet tall. And according to what we heard, that when the Spaniards got there, it made them so mad that they covered up the bottom stones that were really big. Okay, supposedly these stones came from 14 miles away. They carved them down a valley and up the valley to Cusco. I think it's 9,000, 14,000 feet over there. I couldn't even breathe. I made up the steps and went over the big rock and just sat there for a minute. I couldn't even breathe. Here's these guys doing all this stuff 800 years ago. Was it them? Was it the Peruvians? Like, why would anybody do that? All you have to do is care for your llamas and your guinea pigs and all that, and have some fruit and bananas and stuff, and you're fine. Why in the world would they do these stones? These stones fit together, and in some places, they fit together on the back where you can't even see them. It's like triply hard, quadruply hard. Okay. So this is one of the really big ones there. Now, how in the world could they move that thing down a mountain, even going downhill, much less going uphill, and get it over there? And there are thousands of these things. That's just one place in Peru. So back to the point. Was this done by the little 5-foot guy Peruvians that it didn't have to do that? Or did they have some sort of help, some angelic help, some help from the Nephilim, some superior force, that we read about in the Bible and other places? I think that should have to be considered. Here's one of the first guys over there. This is a 12-angle stone. I think there's a 60 angle. You see that stone with this guy on his right side there? That's just extremely difficult to do. Because how are you going to, if you move a stone in, you might say you shave it off on both sides to get it correct. Then you pull it back and do that how many times you get it exactly right. And the thing weighs 50,000 pounds. How are you going to do that? Or do you cut them first and then put them together? How would you get them cut perfectly, separated? I mean, the whole thing's a mystery, unless they had some sort of superior power. Or maybe evolution isn't true and the Peruvians were more advanced then than they are now. Well, that doesn't fit the evolution nonsense, okay? Here's one of those walls there. Just like, why? You don't have to do it that way. And in some cases, apparently, they cover these things with clay or paint or something. One of the big temples there that the Catholic Church came in after the Spaniards took over, they were going to tear it down, and they decided, well, heck, let's just use it. But apparently, according to them, around the top of the rim of the room was encased in gold, worth probably billions of dollars. So the Spaniards came in and said, fellas, y'all get that. We're going to take that with us. And the coffers of Spain must have increased significantly. And I don't know if they used it for an exchange down there or not, but boy, it was worth a lot of money. This is Calasaya ruins at Tiwanaku. This is one stone that was carved. I think it's andesite. This stuff is so heavy. And not only did I think the thing's laying down flat, they carved it. They had to get it out of a mountain, cut it and trim it down, carve all these carvings on it, and stand it up. There it stood for who knows how long. And then something knocked it down. When you go to some of these places, these giant stones were all fitted together, beautifully done. And it looks like somebody came with a giant hammer, just busted them all up, knocked them down, and scattered them. It's almost like they're dynamited, I don't know, it's really strange. Again, I think it must have been a judgment of God by another, or maybe just an opposing army. People have always torn each other's stuff up for a long time. Here's the wall up at Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu is 9,000 feet up the mountain, and the trucks or the buses go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to get up there. The Incans just ran up the Inca Trail. You're like, really? You can't even walk 10 feet up there without being out of breath. But here they are on the top of a mountain. It's all busted up granite probably after the flood. The granite rose up. They went up there and said, let's just carve all these stones into some buildings and level them off, make some places to plant, grass and vegetables, and put our llamas on that. We'll just live up here, way up here where nobody can see us. So they took all this granite and carved it and fit it into these places. If you notice on this one here, there are these bumps on the bottom of the stone. Well, it's not like they couldn't smooth them off because all the rest of them are smooth. Why would they leave those bumps down there? So the modern guys said, well, those so they could pick them up and move them. Well, they're not that big. They couldn't get a hold of them. Why would they leave them? There's some reason why they're there. But I've never told anybody this before, but if you look real carefully, it looks like these things were soft and they just took a big old hoe and raked down the side of them. Now, no, not granite. So I asked one of the Peruvian guides there, I said, how did y'all do that? He said, with the broom. I said, with a broom? Yeah, with a broom. So if you get the stone to turn soft, you could work it with a broom, right? I don't know how they moved them, but there's other things I can tell you I don't have time for right now. This is a Pumapunka. See this stone laying down there? I think it's about that. I didn't get to go. This is my temporary daughter photographed those. Yes?
Back to the notches really quick.
Yes.
Do they also find those all around the world? I've seen some of the other megalithic structures where they have those knobs on them. And I've seen people talk about this connection between all of these different areas.
I think you're right. Maybe in Egypt.
In Egypt and other places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're kind of crude. They don't look like they're really designed very well. They're just sort of incidental. I don't know. Were they not finished? That's the stuff looks finished. I don't know, but there's got to be some reason for it. Well, this thing here at Pumapunka, that's one big sheet of andesite, which had to come out of an andesite mountain. They carved it, cut it, smoothed it, moved it in there, and apparently it used to stand up, I guess, had beams coming out of it. And the some of the edges of it, they're these square corners and stepped shapes. Like, why? Why would you do that? It's just it's hard enough to have the thing, this big stone cut out, but why go to all that detail? Anyway, they did. I mean, it's beautiful work. And it's all been busted up by who knows who. Okay, here's the people that built all this stuff, according to the archaeologists. It's these folks right here. Maybe they did. Well, if they did, they're sure a lot more advanced than we are. Y'all ever heard of this candelabra over there? It's 400 feet tall. It's on the side of a big, giant sand dune. They don't know who did it, don't know what it means, don't know what it is, but they call it the candelabra. Took a lot of effort, and somebody went to a lot of trouble to do it. This over in Silistani. I didn't get to go there. My daughter went there. Well, here they take the stones, and some of these, I don't think they're the same. Some is andesite, maybe something else, some volcanic rock. They carve it in circles. And again, they're perfectly fitted. This is the one that's been destroyed. Someone don't know what happened there. Somebody tore it up. But you see how these stones are not only going around a circle, but if they're a little, they're coming in, and it could go straight across, but it comes in here and lips up a little bit. Gee, y'all just made this twice as hard. Why do that? See that? Why make it hard? Or was it that easy for them? I don't know. Here's one of the walls. Now, some of the guys say, well, those stones on top look like they're melted on there. No, they're not melted. That's not melted rock. That's carved rock that just fits perfectly. There is no reason to do that when we build buildings all over the world with just square stones, right?
Glass has a liquid makeup of it. Glass. You stack it long enough, it settles, right? The rock does not have that same principle.
No, not.
You make glass out of rock, sand.
Right. Yeah.
So just go ahead.
They're fitted. The ones on the bottom are cut on the top, so the ones on top will fit on the bottom. And apparently, some of it's been taken away, and they did something else with it. And what the wall was for, we don't know. Is you don't need that much to keep llamas in, Here's apparently these were the foundation. They laid boards over these or something, and that's all kind of still there. What in the world was that? A bathhouse or something? There's some of those stones there. You can tell some of them came out of the quarry. They were laying this way. Some were laying that way. They turned them. So it's I don't know where it came from. It was a long ways off. Here's the wall of a mountain. It's all this rock, this giant rock formation. So they just said, well, let's just go in there and make a big flat wall out of this and put a fake door in it. Yeah, sure, it made sense to them, but it's a work of art. It's an engineering miracle. Would you agree, Randy? This is pretty cool stuff for guys that only had flint. These are Nazca ruins. Most people don't know about the Nazca ruins, and there's some of those. The pyramids over there in Lima, there's a big, half of Lima appears to be a big pyramid made out of, they figure, 15 million bricks or something. And they're about that big, made out of mud and water. Here's one. What is that all for? What good does it do? What do they use it for? We're not sure, but it is significant. And they're all over the place. This is back 100 years ago. Then today they've decided to keep that, make a tourist attraction out of it. Who is this guy? Don't know. Whoops, something happened to my thing here. Oh. This is a pyramid there in Lima. They're kind of trying to rebuild it. They're stacking bricks long ways instead of flat ways. I guess that's where they're built. But this thing is significant. And there are burials in there. There's all sorts of stuff. I guess the kings buried themselves in there. The tumba of the elite. I suppose this is the warrior culture. Today, the warrior, there's little bitty old ladies that come out with their little costumes on, with their llamas, and you can pay them a little bit, and you take a picture with them. That's the warrior today. They don't look very warlike today, if that's what they were. This thing is enormous, pile of dirt. You had to go, this is enough. Where'd the dirt come from? It's as big as an Olympic stadium. And there's Olympic swimming pools of water there. How did they do that? Beautifully made. It's nothing's accidental about it. This is one of the tombs there. And some of those tombs, if I'm not mistaken, they have the head of the thing has blue eyes. So, okay, blue eyes, blonde hair. What's the deal with all that? That was me, by the way. Just throw that in there. Job was there. Okay, see this little thing there? That's one of the bricks. It's painted yellow. The yellow is still nice, still good. So we stopped at one of these pyramids. It's got a fence around it now, and they sell curios next door, but they throw their trash over at this pyramid. It's like, that's just y'all's main thing. You're throwing trash over there. So this guide here, he says, well, this one was painted yellow. That was painted red. There's one over there is painted white. You go, whoa, wait. They painted this one? Where would you get the 15 million gallons of paint to paint it? And there's one over here painted red, one over there painted white. And how many more were there of these dirt pyramids, and why paint them? Okay. See, we think we're so advanced over here, and we're the only ones that know anything. But these are all those big, a lot of these things are tombs. The cemeteries is kind of a sad thing. They've been digging them up for years. A lot of these people are wrapped up in 200 pounds of cotton. They have great cotton over there. They wrap them with all kinds of things in the burial with them. The person's in there usually kind of, in a fetal position. There may be gold and pots. Sometimes there are infant babies in there. This is one that they had just unwrapped over in one of the museums in the back part. It's all there. Whatever they ate that day is still with them. This is out of the tombs. I didn't touch any of these things, but there's skulls. The skull isn't interesting. They just throw it on the top of the ground. These are the huaqueros. Now that cup there is actually plastic. I was thinking, wow, a Greek cup. It's just a plastic cup, okay? There's one that used to have ropes around it. Don't know what was in it, but there it is. Ended up in the museum. These places are vast. One of these cemeteries goes for 7 miles. If you don't know how far 7 miles is, you go to most cemeteries in an old town today here in this country. It might be, if it's a mile long, it's a really old cemetery. But a 7-mile cemetery, and there's bunches of them. There's all kinds of cloth laying around the ground. That thing's, that's a pretty sophisticated weave there of cotton. There's all kinds of, here's the grave wrappings. And they just throw them on the ground with the bones of their ancestors. This is a real open weave, which they oftentimes put on the face. And there you go. All this rocks out there, those are tombs. And they go on forever. And there's nothing out there. How they could make bricks they had to take all the water with them. These are some of the huaqueros. This is not my photograph, but these guys go in there and they run a stick down or something till they hit something. They tell something's there. Then they dig it out. They know there's a there. They haven't been there a very long time. Those look like someone that passed away a couple of years ago, last year. That's just laying all over the ground out there. That's the tombs they've dug up, and there's more to go. It's like it's been bombed, It's an endless graveyard. None of these skulls were elongated. None of them were odd looking. They were all the normal skulls. I guess that's why they didn't collect them. But they're all sorts of stuff. We didn't pick anything up. I did find a little arrowhead, and I gave that to the museum director. I don't know what it was. I guess it was just something got in the grave. But these are all normal skulls. They don't even have any Inca bones in them. It almost makes you wonder if they were related to the other Inca people, or if they're a different bunch of folks. So this is one of they dig into these things and make a cave, and in those caves, they create a cave out of these stones and logs. But the stones are huge. Some of them, they had to carry them in there, then build these structures out of them, make the mud, the adobe. You see the adobe bricks there. It just baffles the imagination to think they had the manpower to do that. Here's these trees are really, I guess they're really hard to cut. And so if you've got those in there, that's a really expensive deal would be today. This is a modern cemetery there. And it's really different than anything that the ancients were doing. Have y'all heard of the Nazca lines? You know, they said, well, that's where the spaceships landed. I go, well, you'll go over there and look at them. They go across draws and creeks and stuff. Besides that, spaceships don't land. They just sit down, don't they? According to all the people who have been there. I haven't seen one yet, but anyway. These are the Nazca lines. They're all over the Nazca Plain where the volcano went off and deposited all this black gravel, brown gravel, all of the gray plain. So the people, the Peruvians, went out there and they did make these parabolic lines, which look like they're going forever, but about a mile down they sort of conjoin. And they're perfectly straight. They're going, man, how do they get that straight? I go, come on. On the farm, if you're going to put in a fence, you're here, your brother goes down there and puts down a stake, and you get the brother in the middle and you get him, okay, move over. Now you can put in a perfectly straight line. Even farm boys can do it. So that may be how they did this. Some of them go into a hill and they come out the other side of the hill. Anyhow, there are a lot of straight lines out there. Here's zigzag lines, and some of them just go up and make a V. I don't know if we got any. Can't always get photographs over there of the ones that the monkey and the spider and all that sort of stuff. But why would they do a long straight line? What they did is they went out and moved the dirt, moved the rock away, and it looks in some cases like they carried the rock off because the rock doesn't look like it's around there. Anyway, that's what it looks like from the air. Some of these lines just go forever across the mountains. This is, I think, the monkey. I don't know if you can't probably see that. They're really good photographs. This wasn't a good day for that. There's a big hummingbird, what they call a hummingbird, which is so stylized, you're thinking, that don't look like any hummingbird I ever saw. Can y'all see that at all? Yeah. Okay. Then there's this thing. Looks like, I don't know what that is, some kind of a parrot with lines going across it. There's a thing called I think that's a bird. One of the funniest things I thought was Tweety Bird. Y'all ever watch a cartoon, Tweety Birds? Tweety Bird?
Yeah.
Why were the Peruvians depicting Tweety Bird out there in the middle of the desert? That's what it looks like. What is that? So here's a supposed tree. And why would they do a tree? I don't know. They probably all had a meaning, which is probably lost on us. This is down on the ground. That's one of the lines there, and that may have been cleaned up by the local authorities, but it just goes on forever. This is back to some of the stuff we were looking at a while ago. You can find all these things in the National Museum of Archaeology. If you get in going with a group, sometimes you can see all the stuff in the storehouse. Thousands upon thousands of beautifully made pots. They've taken out of those graves. A lot of them look like portraits of somebody. They've got tons of these mummified heads. These things were trophies. They'd win against somebody in battle, and then they put a rope in their skull and carry it around their waist. You ever heard of this lady? Anybody know anything about Indian religions, East Indian? The goddess Kali. She's depicted with skulls around her waist and her foot on her husband's neck. Sweet gal. It was George Harrison's. George Harrison liked that, one of the Beatles. Anyway, there she is over there in Peru. We're going to take questions here in a minute. We got enough time for questions?
Yes, it's 4:30 now.
All right. We keep going through these. If y'all have any questions, any comments, I'll be glad to entertain them.
We do have one question from the comments. Somebody is asking, how big did people, animals, and plants get before the flood?
Well, according to the fossil record of all the layers, we're sure buried animals that lived at the time of the flood, lizards grew exponentially. They were, some of them, the back would be 20, 30 feet in the air. Their heads would be 80 feet in the air. Some of these things were 120 feet long. Some of the people that have been found in stone, usually about 12 feet tall. There are others have been reported in ancient records, but I don't have anything current on, but they were really big. Everything seems to have been bigger before now. And I want to say this about how big people were before the flood. I have some Seventh-day Adventist friends, and their view is that, I believe, I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, that Adam was 16 feet tall and Noah was 12 feet tall. And I said, well, the only problem with that is we know the ark was 450 feet long. Based on a cubit, even the royal cubit, that'd mean a man about 6 feet tall or so. So probably Noah, if he's measuring the ark based on his cubit, wouldn't have been 12 feet tall. There were people that tall, I'm sure. I just don't think that Noah was. So, is there another question?
Not in the comments yet. Just go ahead and announce that we're having a Q&A as you wrap it up, and then I'm sure some people will start to comment and questions.
All right. We're entertaining question and answers right now. Anybody has some online, we'll type them in. We'd be glad to look at them. Any one of y'all guys? Yes, sir.
So the Inca stone, a guy could have owned that stone and he could have worked on a square inch for a year. He could have worked on it for years and years and just is that, I think that's very possible.
Well, that's possible. Some of them are bas relief. My friend has two of them. They're really intricate. They don't look like fakes because nobody would go to that much trouble to make a fake. But they're bas relief. The dinosaur they're depicting is raised, so they had to carve away the rock around it. Now, andesite carves pretty easy if you have a sharp tool. You could do it with flint. You could do it with a hacksaw blade. You could do it with a copper knife, probably. Don't know what they use, but those took a long time to do. And I really doubt that they were being traded to Dr. Cabrera or anyone else when smaller ones would satisfy the need. So, but yeah, the real ones, if they weren't in any hurry, they could take all the time they wanted. However, being an artist and a sculptor, I know strokes, and they look like they're fairly quickly made, as though they've done a lot of them. There are not a lot of mistakes. They don't go over the line and go, oops. There's a little bit of that, but not. It's all within the artistic method of doing it. Does that answer the?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Steve Quill in his book, Genesis 6 Giants, he's got a chart in there showing different sizes of human remains that have been found. There's a 36-foot giant that they said they found in Carthage. Do you know the story behind that?
Yeah. It's in my book on giants here, by the way. Here we are. Can the camera see that?
Yeah.
I cover a lot of that stuff. In fact, I cover so much stuff, I've forgotten some of it. Can't you ever have that happen to you? Okay. It's also a lot of the other half's the big animals. I worked on a lot of the giant animals. Were there giants before the flood? There were giants after the flood. Animals and rabbits. There were giant rabbits. Because the earth was in a good state after the flood, but it's gotten colder and drier. There's more extreme weather over the years. So animals don't live as long. The weather is just not hospitable to them. But the one in Carthage, there was one they was 30 feet long or something like that, 36 feet. Yeah. I'm not sure it was Carthage. One of those turned out to be some guy built this tomb. Then he went and got some mammoth bones, put them in there. And like I said before, mammoth bones and mastodon bones can look very similar to a human, even the skull, if you take the tusks out. And apparently he was found out, and I believe that they saved some of those bones and that they were identified as mammoth. Does that sound like, have you heard that story?
I have not, but I'll look into it.
Well, there were others over there. There's some that were said to be 60, 90 feet tall. And one was supposedly sitting up in a cave, and they threw stones at it and tore it up. You go, what? You just killed $1 million thing there, you know. But back then, sometimes people would attack things because they're afraid they're going to hurt them, right? Or there's a demon there, or it's who knows. It's like people wear talismans. It's just an object, just a rock or some woven hair or something. It itself isn't anything, but there may have been some reason to believe those things had power. But some of the giants, I think there's enough records that there were men as tall as cedars that made the Israelites feel like we're grasshoppers in their sight. And apparently they thought the same thing, because it says they both felt the same way. Well, you got to be pretty big to make a man feel like a grasshopper. Okay, so it's sort of it's a way of saying it, but still, why say they were tall as cedars? We're like grasshoppers. If they're 7 feet tall and you're 6 feet tall, if they're 10 feet tall and you're 6. No, it sounds like they were really tall, 20, 30, 40 feet tall. Otherwise, you know, when Joshua and Caleb came back, the other 10 witnesses said, no, we can't take them, man. They're, you know, we're terrible. It's terrible. Joshua and Caleb said, we don't care how tall they are. God's on our side. We can take them. That was the point. They lacked faith. That was the evil report, in my opinion. It wasn't that they were giants. That was not the evil report. The evil report was they lacked faith. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
What's a 24-foot skeleton worth today?
You name your price. You find one, let me know, because we'll come up with money for one, won't we? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I had a question. This actually pertains to 3 talks ago that you did on soft tissue. So a lot of evolutionists come at us with preservation and deep time preservation. What is like your response to those who say like iron can preserve the blood, or certain things can preserve soft tissue?
Well, after Mary Schweitzer found, you know, the red blood cells, soft tissue, and all that, we'd already found collagen, another T-Rex bone. And she's found other stuff since then. Mark Armitage has found osteocytes and osteoblasts, nerves in Triceratops with a double helix wrapping around them. Impossible to preserve. She, I'm sure, called a lot of flack, but she said, well, they're encased in iron. Iron has preserved them. That was, so thank you. That sounds good. But my buddy Stan Lutz from Idaho has been digging in the Clarkia Formation. The Clarkia is just this vast area, like shale. And there are all these leaves and things there. A giant squirrel was in there, birds and all kinds of stuff. And these leaves, when you break the layers apart, they smell like leaves in the yard. And they'll retain some color if you spray them with some sort of fixative right quick. But there's DNA there. And they're not preserved by iron. So that might be true in some cases, but that's not proved. It's a good story though.
All right, we have some questions in the comments here. Somebody's asking how you and Kent first met.
How did Kent and I first meet? I think I must have heard about him. We exchanged some information on giants back quite a while ago.
I don't remember.
You were speaking, so I knew about you. I don't know if you knew about me, but anyway. I think the first time I met you came out to our dig in Colorado.
Yeah, that's right.
So I was plastering and I had to stand up and you were down working and I had to put my hand on something to steady me and your back was there.
Is that where you got the roots back to?
I guess.
So he's initiated.
All right, somebody else is asking if your museum has been repaired yet and if you ever did get the new truck.
Well, didn't get a new truck. Truck's doing okay, but just talked to one of the fellows there that's in the museum. Said they managed to kind of dry the floor out. It stopped raining, but the displays are all messed up. Some of the bones have fallen apart because it got wet. And Well, I'd take the carpet out. I don't know. There's thousands of gallons had to go somewhere under that building. I'm not sure where they went. So it's going to be a real chore to get that fixed up. But I'm not sure. It's almost like fourth tornado on one building. I'm not sure what we're going to do, but we're going to work on it. I can never find my way back. If I went to town, I could never get back. What those trees? See, in Texas, your landmarks are the next town, not all these trees. You know where you are because of the next town, because there are no trees. Somebody else make up a question like,
Billy's asking in the comments what his response is to the skeletons, the giant bones that you're finding.
I'd like to know. I'm going to contact that guy. He keeps showing up on my YouTube channel. I'm going to contact him. Like, okay, fella, if you're going to get on my YouTube, you're getting in my playing. Let's talk. Now make a public thing. I'm going to talk to this guy. Y'all tell him to talk to me. I mean, maybe he can put me down. That'd be cool. But yeah, I'm going to talk to him and find out, well, what do you say about all this stuff? You can criticize somebody because you don't like their degree or lack of degree, or you don't like something about them. Big deal. What about the evidence? What about all that strata all over the world? I asked a famous paleontologist one time. He's giving a talk up in South Dakota. He says, well, they were over there in Argentina and digging up Herrerasaurus, and this skull just sitting there on the dirt. And there's all these layers of red, white, red, white, red, white, 400 feet of red, white layers, all flat. And, well, that's cool. I said, Paul, all that strata over there y'all digging in looks like it is all over here in South Dakota and Montana, North Dakota, etc. Flat layer upon flat layer upon flat layer. Where are your fossil canyons? I'm still speaking English, but I guess he thought I don't know. He went into Greek and I can't answer him. He just looked away. Yeah, they got all these flat strata, Mr. Ra, little G Ra. Why is there if time passed between these layers, where's the fossil canyons? Where is the erosion? It's not there. The only time you do find that is where all these layers are being laid down. There must have been an earthquake shock or something came across, made the water do something, and it cut a temporary channel, laid down some gravel and layers in there, and then it's filled back over, and the same layer that was filling in that got cut away starts filling in again. It's a lens. Everybody knows that the layer above the lens and the layer below, or the lenses are all the same age. Otherwise, it couldn't be there. So, yeah, let's get something up with Mr. Ra, and we'll see if he can.
All right.
He's from Texas? I hope he drinks. I don't know. He drinks Dr. Pepper. That hurt the business. Yes, sir.
What's your take on Greek mythology, Clash of the Titans, this kind of stuff? Is this mythology that's actually got more truth to it?
Yeah, the battle between the gods and the Titans. Titans. There's another word for Titan. It's Satans. Satan. So a Titan is a Satan. It's one of the Satans. Okay, and the gods, the little g gods, are probably the fallen angels. The Titans are probably their evil sons, and their egos got to going back and forth. I think they had a battle. The Bible talks about there's war in heaven. That may be what that's talking about. I'm not sure theologically if that's really correct. But again, why? We think of a myth as being a falsehood. Well, I think the true definition of myth is a story, an accounting, okay, in the ancient world. So it's an accounting of something that happened. All those phrases over there where the angels with the wings are taking the women or the men with the wings, those appear that's a pretty common theme around the world. So yeah, I think a lot of those Greek myths, they're really talking about actual events, actual people. So when they talk about Poseidon, Atlantis, all those guys, that's probably the name of one of the primary principal angels that came down and, did their thing on earth, in my opinion.
Have you ever seen the Reichardt structure in the Sahara? It's called the Eye of the Sahara. It matches the dimensions of Atlantis.
Is it a city or a pit?
It's just a landmark. I I mean, they could see it from space. It's got mountains around it. It's concentric circles. They see dried out riverbeds. It fits a lot of Solon's descriptions of Atlantis. Plato's father,
Right.
grandfather. I can't remember.
I think I have seen a photograph of Atlantis photograph, but I don't know anything about it. But did Atlantis exist? I think it probably did. Why did it go down? It may have been before the flood. One of those angels that had all this stuff was trying to take over from God. He just said, the elevator goes down here. I think it could happen just like that. Somewhere over there in the ancient world where they used to be able to boat across this ocean or sea, whatever. And it finally filled with so much mud and debris, they finally couldn't get across it. So things have changed, things change. All the stuff uncovered in the desert, it's like, who knew it was there? How did it get covered? In England, they dig down over there anywhere and they hit something that was there before. I just want to know, where did the dust storms come from in England to cover that stuff? But explain that in Texas, but out there, so yeah.
The city of Bruges in Belgium used to be a major port. Not anymore.
Maybe that's what I'm talking about. That it filled in. What happened?
Very ancient city.
Yeah.
So if you have a picture of a mammoth on a bowl in Peru, that's possibly no different than a picture of the Eiffel Tower in Nebraska.
Right. Well, see if you excavated a somebody that was buried in 1700, right? And they had a cell phone with them, then you'd have to say, okay, they had cell phones back then, we just didn't know it. So if you said also that, well, the longhorn, well, here's one for you. What's that sheep with the big horns? The ibex. Y'all guys from Texas, you ever seen an ibex in Texas with the long horns? A wild one? No, because they're not there now. But there's a rock over there around Crosbyton. If somebody carved a big old ibex in it, showing that this thing was here. We saw it. So if you said that, well, those people couldn't have known about mastodons because they went extinct 10,000 years ago. Peruvians are long since then. That disproves the idea of 10,000 years ago because they know the Peruvians, when that pot was made in the last 1,000 years, they know that for a fact. So if they were depicting it accurately, that means they had to see a mastodon recently. So there goes evolution. There goes your period of time. If you find dinosaur depictions by men in England 1,000 years ago, then that means there's not enough time for anything to evolve. So therefore, evolution isn't true. That's the problem with it. If that answers the question.
All right, we have one more question on the live chat. Chaser is asking, were the giants human, as in otherwise similar to us in every other way? She continues to argue that, well, humans can only get to a certain size before they stop growing, so how can the giants get so big?
Well, it's true that mammals like elephants, bison, and humans, our long bones, all of our bones tend to have a cap on them. They do have a cap on them. And at a certain age, they fuse. So if you're a healthy boy today, you'll grow to your 21 and then these bones fuse and you won't grow any further. So when you hear of a 15-year-old kid on the football team coming home complaining of what they call it, growing pains, well, that's because he's running around on a knee that hasn't fused to the cap, and that hurts. After a while, he won't have any problem with that, but that's growing pains. But at a certain point, all animals, that bone fuses. But if you're a giant, then you're going to grow a lot faster than anybody else would. So your bones are going to fuse at the same rate as anybody else's, except you're just growing faster in the meantime. There's another thing that they say, well, giants could never have been 12 feet tall or 15 feet tall because they just fall apart. They couldn't stand the weight. Yeah, we're not talking about a 6-foot tall person that weighs 400 pounds. That's not the deal. These guys were athletes. They were soldiers, adventurers, and all that. So I've tried to show that there's pictures of a African elephant standing on a stool on their front legs. They're supporting them, their body weight just fine. They can stand on their hind legs just fine. So it's not true that people couldn't get above 8 feet without being ill. Your body's going to account for all that. You're going to grow in mass as you grow in height. So actually, the taller you get, the more massive you become. I'm sure there's a mathematical thing to that, but it doesn't prevent us from the giants from getting tall. It's not a disclaimer or a detractor.
All right, Dr. Kettle is going to actually do the closing.
All right. Well, thank you, brother. That was awesome. Thank you. All right. And we hope you're enjoying boot camp here. The ministry has paid for everything. We pay for your food. We pay for the air conditioning. We pay for the speakers to come. If you'd like to help, please do. Okay, go to drdino.com, make any checks to CSE or put something in the box out there. So we don't take offerings and all that stuff. I'm not against that. But it is costing us a fortune. And we hope this is helpful to you. Now, if we'd like to have one of these twice a year, how many would like to see another boot camp without waiting another year and have some speakers in here and teach creation? I think we got a great place God has given us out in a wonderful city of Lenox, Alabama. We want to use this for God's glory. So we're always building stuff around here. And brother, if you can't get your museum fixed, bring it to Lenox, okay? Now, I would like to see somebody. One young man today told me, I think God wants me to be a paleontologist. I said, why don't you go work for the summer at this place? You can start learning from the best right there. If you're looking for ministry work, Joe, you could use somebody today out there, couldn't you? Yeah. And if some of you say, I can't go, but I'll pay the salary for somebody to go. Well, you pay their salary and then go work for Joe all summer and get the job done. Fix the museum up, get it all put back together. That'd be awesome. If you're ever driving across Texas, stop in Crosbyton because there's nothing else to see as you drive across Texas. Okay. It's a long ways across that state. Okay, thank you so much. We have supper time in a few minutes, and then we'll have tour time. And 7 o'clock tonight, Matt Powell coming back. You ready, Matt?
Sounds good.
Amen. All right, let's go for supper. See you. Bye.
Yeah.